You're ready.
Alright. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We are Mavericks for Life. We're the pro-life club on campus. We have 4 speakers here today. They all have some sort of contribution to the pro-life movement. They have incredible stories to share and what they do. Please join me in welcoming Teresa Strack. Teresa is Executive Director of Life First, a pro-life organization whose mission is to do the grassroots works of individual heart and mind change to make abortion and euthanasia unthinkable. Thank you, Teresa. Please join me in welcoming Ashley Hoggins. She is a support group leader with Embrace Grace, an organization that exists to help inspire and equip the church to love and encourage single and pregnant young women and families. Thank you, Ashley. Please welcome Justina Russell. Now, Justina is actually one of our peers. He's a student here at Lone Star Montgomery. He's a major contributor to our club, and he's very educated, and he'll be our male perspective for today. Thank you, Justina. And then please welcome Carrie Nelson. Carrie testifies to the tragedy of her own abortions. Carrie now ministers to post-abortive women and shares that healing is possible. And she's the founder of Bind Up the Broken, which we'll hear about in just a minute. Thank you, Carrie. So throughout this time, they will each introduce themselves, what they do, what this means to them, and then I prepared questions to expand on their experiences and show us more of their perspective. So Teresa, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So again, my name is Teresa Strack, the Executive Director of Life First. I'm a mother of 4, and my degree was in, I had a double major in social work and political science when I graduated from Houston Baptist University. I got involved in this issue because I truly believe that it is the compassion issue of our time and the civic issue of our time. Life First exists, as you said, to do that heart and mind change that will make abortion and euthanasia and the disrespect for the handicap, which is engendered in that, unthinkable. Because as some of you may know, just in our nation alone, there's been over 62 million lives lost to abortion. Every year, over 50 million lives lost to abortion in our world. And I do believe there's all of the countless, like I said, countless what I call walking wounded. The young women, men, and families that make a decision for abortion, oftentimes in a time of crisis and haste, and then come to regret that decision. Sometimes are tormented by it for decades, sometimes a lifetime. So it's an issue that I believe that we must address from a compassion issue. I also believe it's a civic issue of our day. The very first right that was enumerated in our very first founding document was the right to life in the Declaration of Independence. And then, of course, it was reiterated in the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. So all of our rights, our right to freedom of speech, our right to assembly, our right to religious expression, they're all founded on that foundation of the very right to life. So I believe it's the issue that is going to determine our nation's character, whether we remain a compassionate society, and whether our other rights are going to be upheld. And just to let you know just a little bit further about Life First, we are not politically oriented. Again, we're focused on that heart and mind change, the attitudes that undergird judicial rulings and laws. So we kind of address this issue from a 3-pronged approach. Number 1, prayer. I do personally come to this issue from a Christian perspective, although there's plenty of support for whether you believe in Christianity or not. Like I said, there's that civil, secular basis to it as well. But we do address it with prayer. Secondarily, education, and what we call inspirational activities, because we as humans make our decisions with our head and our heart. So there we do 5 different pro-life student contests, one of which is the video contest, which goes up through college age 23. We have a social media campaign, When Does Life Begin? I see someone wearing one of the shirts. Thank you very much. That's great. We have monthly meetings. We think we're going to switch to a podcast. We've had billboards. We do a lot of things in the area of education and inspiration. And then our third prong is what we call direct care. Especially prior to Dobbs, we would go outside the abortion facilities. We still do that now because a lot of women are still going to the Planned Parenthoods that are open, seeking information about out-of-state abortions. And we're out there with signs that let them know that we are praying for them. We also have real help for them. And while we're there, when those folks come over to speak to us, we're able to direct them to the pregnancy care centers and other resources so they can get the help that they need. So that's kind of our three-pronged approach, and that's why I'm involved in this issue.
Thank you, Teresa. So, Teresa, the When Does Life Begin Facebook page gives you the opportunity to respond to many of the common arguments. The most common is probably the bodily autonomy of the woman or my body, my choice. What do you say to that argument?
Well, I think we just need to remember that once conception occurs, there are in fact two human beings in play. That person, that beginning human we all started from at fertilization, DNA is the scientific identifier of life. Scientists use DNA to identify plants, to identify animals, and to identify humans. And at conception, when those 23 chromosomes from the mom, 23 chromosomes from the dad unite and form that unique person, that DNA is not only going to identify that new beginning being as a human being, a member of the human family, it's actually going to identify from that moment until that person maybe lives to be 100 as that specific person. That is a unique, separate person. Half the time, a whole different sex from the mother. So there are two bodies in place. And again, one of our civic rights is the right to life. So we need to address and respect the bodily autonomy of both individuals.
Thank you. And then what do you believe about exceptions? Should abortion be legal in the case of rape or a negative fetal diagnosis?
Well, regarding rape, that of course is a very difficult situation, but I think that we need to remember, first of all, that rape accounts for a little bit less than 1% of all abortions. The vast majority of abortions are elective abortions. And then secondarily, we need to remember that, that we need to look at the long-term outcomes for the woman. And there hasn't been enough studies done on this. We need to do more studies. There's really only two that I know of. One that was done clear back in the 1980s, and then a more recent one. And interestingly, both of those studies found that 75% of the women who experienced pregnancy from rape actually chose to give birth to the child. Whether they in fact then parented the child or made an adoptive plan, the vast majority of women actually carried the baby to term. And that was interesting, and the thought process behind that was that many of the women saw the abortion, as a further assault, and also they recognized that it was not the baby's fault that the rape occurred, and abortion was not going to undo the rape. The rape had already occurred, the trauma from that rape had already occurred. Now the question was how to go forward from that. So giving life to the child is certainly an important thing. And then for the long-term health, those two studies, not only did most of the women choose to give life, but they also found that those women who chose life from rape actually had better long-term outcomes emotionally. So I believe we really need to look at that. It's such a knee-jerk reaction that if a woman is raped, it's best for her, and that's the best for the situation. Well, it's certainly not best for the baby, and the little bit that we know, it's also not best for the woman. So I think we need to keep that all in mind. And then secondly, regarding fetal, anomalies, we need to keep in mind that oftentimes, even with our modern testing, doctors are not infallible. There's many cases of them being wrong. And I really see that even in cases where they're possibly right, I see it as really discrimination against the handicapped. Estimates are that 66% of children who are diagnosed with Down syndrome, and those people will live very happy, healthy lives, are aborted. simply because they have that handicap. That is a form of discrimination. The same thing has happened with babies that have spina bifida. And now we have really ever increasing treatment for babies with spina bifida. They're going in and doing surgery while the baby is in utero to close up, the spinal cord and the cavity. So I think that is something that we need to address. When genetic testing was first started, back when I was having kids, it was proposed to us that we should have this genetic testing so that we could prepare for the child who might have some challenges. But now what has happened is it has moved to very much a mechanism to eliminate those individuals who have challenges. So I think, again, that's a discriminatory practice. I'll close with this. I need to move on to the others, but we had a man that was a speaker at one of our monthly meetings. Edgar Pacheco, he lives down in Pearland, so he's a local young man. He was born with no arms and no legs, absolutely nothing, just a trunk and his head. And his mother was very much encouraged to have an abortion, but fortunately she did not. And he's 21 years old now, finished his first 2 years at a junior college at San Jacinto, applying now to go on to college. He has gotten very involved politically, actually went up and did some work up at Austin during the last legislative session for a bill to help kids with handicaps. That bill had stalled in 2 previous sessions. For 6 years they had tried to pass this bill, but they got Edgar to go up there and be the voice of the handicap, the picture of the handicap. He was up there week after week, day after day, navigating those halls in his wheelchair, and that bill finally passed. And they then changed the name of that bill to the Edgar Pacheco Jr. bill because they recognized he was instrumental in getting that passed. So he is already, at a young age, bettering our society, having a full, happy life himself and helping others. So I just wanted to leave you with that personal story. We need to help the handicapped, not eliminate them.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Could I comment on that real quick? I just think that's a great point, because who are we really to decide who gets to live and who doesn't? Who are we to say, well, this child has Down syndrome, so that's a death sentence to them? Like, almost everybody here probably, most people that are involved in the pro-life movement have met or know people that have kids who have Down syndrome, kids like Edgar that have disabilities. And it's crazy to see people from the pro-abortion movement say that they are the side of mercy, they are the side of love, they are the side of compassion, when they look at victims of a child that have been conceived in rape, and they look at them in their face and say, you should have been aborted, your life wasn't really worth living. I think it's crazy to see people who pretend to be all about love say that.
Yeah, I agree. And if anyone else has questions they'd like to ask at the end, we'll have a time for questions from any of the speakers, and we'll have other opinions as well from similar questions. Thank you so much for sharing, Teresa. Now, Ashley, you chose to have your baby, but it was a difficult decision. What was it that made it easier for you to choose life? Oh, sorry, yes.
No.
Please introduce yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm Ashley Coggins, and I am a part of a group called Embrace Grace. And Embrace Grace is a pro-life, pro-love ministry within churches. So there's over 860 across the nation. And so pro-life is a stance, and pro-love is the action behind that. And we can be pro-life, but also do it in a pro-love way, so people will know that they're loved and that they're accepted in their situation and their circumstances, no matter who they are and whatever their background may be. So we're within churches, and so ours is in the Woodlands, and we help young ladies with unplanned pregnancies. And that is like physically, spiritually, emotionally. We want to help meet those needs. We give the girls baby showers. We have baby showers that we do. We take care of, those physical needs that they might have, as well as meeting with them every single week, so they have a support group of friends that they have that are similar situations. And so we have Embrace Grace, and that is a 12-week semester. And then we have Embrace Life, which is for single moms after they've had their babies. So that's for parenting and life skills and things like that they may have. And then also there's a new group called Legacy, and that's for the single dads. And that's going to be for freedom, for them to receive freedom, for them to learn how to be a good dad and to help lead their family well. And then we also have these love boxes. So these love boxes are something, the way that the groups are connected with different people that have the unplanned pregnancies. So we have these in pregnancy centers across the nation. These are given out for free. So if a young lady comes in and they find out that they're pregnant and they have their pregnancy test that they receive, and imagine the feeling of that and feeling like, how did this happen to me? And where do we go from here? I had all these plans for my future. What do I do? Well, when they go to a pregnancy center and they find out that they're pregnant, they're gifted with one of these boxes. And so this is a source of hope and just a moment of love and joy in that situation. And so there's different gifts in here for the girls to let them know that they're not alone. And then this is one of the gifts that they receive. And how can you not love this? This is my favorite in the box, because it is true that babies are, a best gift ever. And it's, children are a gift from the Lord. And I know for me personally, whenever I had my son, I found out I was pregnant in high school. I was a junior in high school. And my boyfriend and I had been dating for a year, and all of a sudden we find out that we're pregnant. And we were fearful and shocked and felt backed into a corner, like, what do we do? How can this be happening to us? What are people gonna think? And so, we went through the process of that. We held, that secret in for a long time. We didn't tell our best friends, we didn't let anybody know. And I was gonna be moving over the summer. And so we thought, okay, if we just wait until, we move, our parents will still let us see each other. And so that was a time that was really challenging. And I grew up in a Christian home. I grew up in a great family. We were very pro-life. And so for this to happen to me and still know, that our family's pro-life when we don't believe in abortion, but being faced with that situation, you question everything that you believe. You question, what do I do? You don't want people to know. I was an older sister to 4 younger brothers, and so that was something that, to me, I thought, what a terrible role model that I'll be for my brothers. And so that was something that I really truly considered at that time because of that. So we, I was 5 months pregnant by the time anybody found out. My mom came and sat on the couch beside me, and she asked me if I was pregnant. And so I knew that my parents would be supportive, so I had that. I had a boyfriend that was supportive, but at the same time, it was just scary. But she came and sat beside me at 5 months, and I was trying to hide it. My belly was growing. And so I said, yes, I am. And so she said, okay, well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the pregnancy center tomorrow. And so that's what we did. And, they talked with us, and they, explained, gave us hope, basically. And so, so I was able to earn a crib. They have a program. A lot of pregnancy centers have programs where they help you, earn your different items that you may need. And so that's what I did. And we ended up having our baby boy, and we got married a month before he was born. And he is actually 23 years old now. And my husband and I have been married for 24 years. So we just actually celebrated our 24th yesterday. So, so God's been so good in our life, and our son was absolutely the biggest blessing ever. So we're so grateful for that. But yeah.
So
what was your question?
Thank you. So you had your baby, but it was difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say made that decision easier?
So what would have made it easier?
Or what was it that made it easier?
What was it that made it easier? Okay, so obviously having a supportive family, having a supportive boyfriend, that made it a lot easier. I know that, having support from other people, friends and things like that. Of course, I was hiding it, holding it in, a secret, but friends and family, whenever they were there and they knew, they came around us. They gave us a baby shower. They gave us, a wedding shower and things like that. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
And then, what could your church have done to make it easier? You mentioned that you were in the church, but what do you believe they could have made
Yeah.
better?
So obviously having an Embrace Grace would be amazing. They're across the nation now. I so wish that I would have had something like that back then. I tell the girls that come through our group all the time, y'all are so blessed to have this group because you actually have a group of friends that are in the same situation, the same seasons of life. You don't feel like you're the only one going through that problem, because a lot of times when we're going through different things, whether it's something else or a pregnancy, a lot of times we feel like we're the only ones that are going through that. And so, being in a small Christian school that we were at, to share that was very scary, to let people know. But yeah, having the support of the church and them speaking out more about it, like in a pro-life way. We didn't have, our church was great, but they didn't talk about pro-life issues. They didn't talk about resources that were out there. And then obviously a church needs to speak about it in a pro-love way, because if it's a church that speaks against it, that's not going to be very comforting, and you really don't want to share that information. But yeah, just having a church that stands out and talks about that kind of thing. That abortion is not your only issue. Abortion is all we hear about. But then when we hear about the other options and the resources, and having a group like Embrace Grace really helps. That would have been helpful.
And then, how does Embrace Grace get promoted in a church? Like, how do they connect with the congregation? Is it just in the church, or how do they talk about it in the church?
Yeah, so not all churches know about it yet. So right now there's 860 across the nation. So word of mouth, and schools being involved and things like that. But
That's a lot.
yeah. So that's amazing. They've been around for 10 years. But yeah, our goal is to be in every single church, because the more people that know, the more people that have groups and that class being available, then people will flood the churches, and they'll come to the churches, and we want to be known more for what we are for than what we're against as a church. We don't want to be say, oh, we're only pro-life, and then the people that choose the abortion, they don't feel like they can run to the church. But a church should be a place of healing, and people that have had abortions, they need healing. So it's important for the church to start talking about these things. And there's some amazing churches that do, obviously, but yeah, so.
Yeah, thank you. And then I also want to note, I know a few of you are going to class, but if you don't mind signing in before you leave. And then Justina, would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, first of all, I wanted to comment on Ashley's story. I think it's a great story, and it goes to show that, like we were saying before, really the side of love, the side of the truth, the side of science, the side of compassion is the pro-life side. Teresa, you probably know the statistics more than I do, but what I see is, and what most of us here listen and hear today from social media, from the news, is that pro-life side only cares that the baby is born, and then they don't care anymore. And really, your organization proves that that's not the case. It's the pro-life side that brings in millions of dollars to support women around the country that happen to be in unexpected pregnancies, and the other side instead just gives you the quick and easy solution. They get paid for it, and then they sell the bodies of the babies that are aborted. So I think maybe because I've heard a statistic that goes that pregnancy centers outnumber Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, there's over 2,000, and I think a little over 2,300. It's about 2,300 pregnancy care centers all across the United States. So it varies as far as the ratio of pregnancy care centers to abortion facilities, depending upon the state. But generally speaking, I think it's like 1 to 6. So there's far more And that number is going to be increasing probably now after Dobbs, when there will be fewer abortion centers, and there's new pregnancy care centers being, established. So far more help available. We just need to make sure and get that information
Right.
to the women and men.
Yeah, that shows like who actually cares about you.
And one more thing that I wanted to add is that 1 in 4 women have an abortion, and 4 out of 10 are the ones that are in the church. And I didn't know that.
And I also want to say that, again, speaking to your point, that pro-life people only care about the baby being born, this Houston area, all of the pregnancy care centers that I know of, they will go to at least 2 years after the baby is born with additional support, parenting classes, help with clothes, help with helping you with staying in school or getting in school or getting your GED. Some of them now are going to 3 years after the baby's born. So there's a lot of support out there, just most people don't know about it.
Do you mind sharing a little bit about
Yes.
why you're pro-life? Why?
I think for me, probably just like everybody else in this room, you hear the mainstream narrative that, one side, just cares about, like we were saying before, just the baby being born. They don't really care about women. One side is all about justice, the other one is about oppression. One side is the side of love, the other one is like the Handmaid's Tale. So for me, it definitely took some time to listen to the other side and to try to get through the lies that I was being told and that you guys are being told. But eventually, looking into it a little more, I noticed that we have been lied to, and that's really the truth. You've been lied to. It's not a clump of cells. It's an actual human being. And just thinking about, what side do I want to be on? Because usually, a thought that comes to mind is we usually compare ourselves to the past. We look at, racial discrimination in the past, slavery, and we say, oh yeah, like if I had been there, I would have definitely been against that. I'm just so superior, so morally superior. So I think we can look at the past and say, yeah, oh yeah, I would have done this or I would have done that, and I can think that I'm gonna do better than people that were in the past. But the reality is that you have to do something about it now. You have to take a stand, and you have to take a side. And I want to be on the side of truth, the side of love, the side of actual compassion, the side that actually cares about human beings.
That's good. So, as a man, you're the male perspective, which is also often looked down upon, but your perspective is very important. So how do you think men can be emboldened to stand up how you did?
Right. I think that would, both for men and women, it would take, firstly, like I said before, looking through the lies that you're told. Because first, you have to realize that it is a human being. It is the greatest crime of our generation. It is the greatest civil rights abuse that Teresa always talks about. And then, once you realize that, once you see the truth, really, there's no one going back. Because once you see the pictures of aborted babies from various times throughout the pregnancy, you can't just ignore that. You can just say, oh, well, I'm gonna keep quiet. I'm not gonna talk about it. I'm gonna let somebody else talk about it. If you don't talk about it, really, no one else will. I think, yeah, it's really up to you, because not a lot of people take a stand, and I think that's why we're, in a sense, for even though this atrocity has been tolerated for so long, I think that's why we haven't woken up, and why our society just ignores it, ignores the issue, keeps it, under the rug. Our generation just like barely talks about it, why the colleges just, keep it there. and they try to shut you down if you say anything against it. So yeah, so those thoughts I think are important. It's like, what side do you really want to be on? Yeah, like, do you, if you care, if this is really the greatest civil rights issue of our time, then you should act accordingly. You should do something about it.
Yeah. And do you remember exactly when you decided to take a stand?
As to getting involved in pro-life clubs, I would say this would be the first time. But like I said before, it took some time. It took some time of talking about it with friends, talking about it at school, during high school, looking at what each side is actually saying, looking at the arguments, looking, okay, like, who's actually right in this really important conversation. And yeah, probably when I did actually get involved would be now.
Yeah. Lastly, what do you think of the phrase, no uterus, no opinion?
Yeah. I think that's really a sad response when I hear that, because it shows really an emotional reaction and not someone that actually wants to know the truth of what's going on. And it's really not true. If we look at any other civil rights issue in the past or even today, during the Black Lives Matter protests, white people were allowed to talk about it. So my point is that everyone has a say on important moral issues of our time. I don't have to be white to speak against racial injustice. I don't have to be a murderer to know that murder is wrong. I don't have to be a politician to talk about politics. And another thing that we have to keep in mind is that men play a huge role in the issue of abortion. I was looking at some statistics the other day that said that when a woman is in that vulnerable position, when she finds out that when she has an unplanned pregnancy, the first person that she turns to is the father of the child. So you're gonna tell me that we don't have a voice on that? It's just not true. And also, men are allowed to go to pro-choice rallies. So why shouldn't? I mean, it's fine if they say it and then they're on their side, but I can't speak about it because I'm on the other side. So it's just really not. It doesn't really make sense. It's more of an emotional reaction. It's not really true.
Yeah, that's an awesome response. Do any of you have something to expand on that?
That was well said.
Well, thank you. And then Carrie, if you have anything to share about why you do what you do and how you became where you are.
Yeah, so I'm just honored to be here today with you guys. I really believe that y'all hold a unique standing and position in our culture today. College age students, you have a voice and it needs to be heard, and you have a powerful voice, and I really believe it's going to be a hedge pin to some of the things that we're talking about today and ending them. And so, yeah, as Abby said, I'm founder of Bind Up the Broken, and we come alongside hurting and traumatized women in the community. Part of that trauma is post-abortive trauma, and from my own story, I will say today, it is a real thing. It never gets less vulnerable for me to sit in front of people like yourself and share my story. It's never easy, I will say. Everything that, that my friends here shared today is true. And forgive me if I get even a little emotional about it. But actually, so part of the reason why I do what I do with Bind Up the Broken is, from my own story. And I realize there could be some of you even sitting here today that have broken pasts, that have trauma. There is no perfect family. there is no perfect life. We all have brokenness and from different decisions that we've made, and but there is hope and healing, and so yeah, that's what.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Carrie, many people deny that there's such a thing as post-abortive syndrome. In fact, on Dr. Phil, a recent episode that featured live action's Lila Rose, he stated that there is no evidence that women are traumatized by abortion, and you are one of those women. What was your experience, and were there any psychological or emotional repercussions?
So the answer is yes. I have had a long journey of healing, and when I did have my abortions, I didn't even really know then that there was pro-choice, pro-life, but it wasn't until after the fact, long after the fact, that I realized that I had been a pro-choice woman. I was definitely, I had drank the Kool-Aid and bought into the lies. And so the repercussions from me making those decisions were great. And I didn't realize until several years later, actually, how grave that would be when I had a nervous breakdown, basically. And from that point on, that would have unraveled an even deeper healing journey for me. So I did suffer psychological, emotional, and spiritual repercussions for my abortions.
And so with that, how were you able to find healing?
So this is such there's so many directions I could go with this, but it was through my faith. I was not always a person of faith, but I found faith in this journey. Number two, it was just through a lot of grit and sticking in there, going to counseling therapy, doing trauma healing therapy, going to inner healing sessions, and having the support of friends in the community that chose not to judge me, that chose to love me. So those things are really important in the case of healing, I believe, for any trauma.
Yeah. So before you decide to have an abortion, what help do you wish you could have gotten?
I think the one thing that my heart needed during that time was support. And if you look at the data of women that end up getting abortion, one of the biggest reasons, one of the top reasons they end up making that decision out of desperation is because they don't have that support. I didn't have the support of my family, and the support that I did have was on the side of pro-choice. And so, and what else? What else did I say?
Yeah, just what help do you wish you would have gotten?
I will say that I wish that I would have known about the pregnancy centers and the numerous resources that are in our community. I had no idea. Now, at that time, when I had my abortions, obviously the resources weren't as numerous, but they're growing even more today, and it's an amazing thing. So,
Thank you. And lastly, what would have been the best thing someone could have said to you?
I was thinking about this after you had texted me, and I think having someone sit down with me and just really speak to me about some of the things that could and would happen from my decision, and really helping me reason and weigh that decision out. And feel like that's what I needed. So
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
you're welcome.
And if anyone else would like to expand on that. But I hope some of you have questions. I really encourage it. This is the time to have those questions. They're all very educated, very experienced. Yeah.
I have one statement.
Okay.
I forgot your name with the purple jacket.
Ashley?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's very beautiful that you have that organization. And I think that is very sweet that y'all give the care packages and stuff. I'm actually very pro-choice. And I support y'all's views on everything, and I hope y'all support mine. We all have our differences. I actually go to women's rallies and preach pro-choice, and I heard you preach. But I just wanted to say, like, even though I have this stance, I do think it's beautiful what you do for women and throw those baby showers and stuff, so it's very beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
Ashley, thanks for sharing your story.
Yeah.
That was awesome. What would you say to families, especially Christian families like you grew up in? You said you went 5 months without sharing with your family, and they love Jesus. What could we do better to have our children actually come to us sooner?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. So I had a great family. Yeah, I had a great family, and we were in church every time the doors were open. So I had a mom that I was super close to, and she's very gracious and very loving. I knew that she would be okay. You know, I just didn't want to disappoint my family. There's nothing that she could have done anymore. And my dad, I didn't have as good of a relationship with him. I knew he'd be mad and he'd be upset. Of course, I mean, most parents would be mad and upset. But you know, I think what made me hold it in for so long was the fear, the shame, and the guilt. Absolutely, 100%. So I don't know that there's anything that my